In this video, we're going to be looking at part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. I'll be showing you some sample questions and answers for this part of the test. The topic for these questions is the future. So these questions are going to be asking you about your future. Remember, in part 1, in general, these questions are going to be about you. They're short, simple questions that require short and simple answers. Really, in this part of the test, the examiner just wants to see your fluency, your ability to communicate fluently in English on some simple topics about you. We're going to be following a bit of a kind of technique for answering these types of questions in part 1, where we use 2-sentence answers. The first sentence giving a direct answer to the question, making sure we're focused on the question, and the second sentence kind of explaining why, giving a bit of an explanation for that first sentence and why that was your answer. It's really quite simple. We don't need to do more than that when we're in part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. Maybe in later parts of the test, you'll have to do things that are a bit more challenging than this. Remember, part 1 is the easiest part. So, let me show you the 4 questions first, and then we'll look at the answers, and then finally analyze why those answers are really good for part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. So, these are the questions here. First one is, what job would you like to have 10 years from now? So again, of course, the focus is the future. 10 years from now, in 10 years. Here, it's a what question. What job? So you need to give a direct answer that gives the job you would like to have. Second question, a bit different. How useful will English be for your future? So you can see the topic of future is still in the question, but it's slightly different because it's a how question. In fact, how useful will English be for your future? So you've got to directly answer that. Say how useful, very useful, not very useful. We've got to give that direct answer when we're answering this question. Again, you can see, okay, the topic is the future. It's similar with these first 2 questions, but they're testing a slightly different skill in terms of what you're speaking about and how you're speaking when you're answering these questions. If we look at the third question there, again, you can see it's about the future. How much traveling do you hope to do in the future? Well, again, the future, your hopes, things you want to do in the future. So again, kind of similar to that first question that was asking about a job, but this is not about a job, it's about an activity, traveling. And it's a how much question. Well, do you want to do a lot of traveling? Do you want to do a little bit? Do you not want to do any traveling at all? You've got to answer that in that first sentence. That's the focus of the question. How much traveling? So you've got to answer that. Now, again, if you look at that fourth question there, again, it's about the future. How do you think your life will change in the future? So again, another how question there, but not how much. How do you think your life will change? So again, you've got to say, you've got to answer that about, well, changing. In what way do you think your life will change in the future? So you can see those 4 questions are all focused on the same topic, but they're asking you slightly different things and they require slightly different skills when you're answering. What I want to do now is just show you some answers to those questions. And as you're listening to the answers, think about kind of what we're doing in those answers to kind of give the examiner a good impression of our level of English. After I've given you the answers, I'll just go through each one, kind of just showing you why it would be a really high level answer. So let's have a look at the first question and the answer for that. So the first question was, what job would you like to have 10 years from now? In 10 years, I'd like to be working in an international company in some kind of managerial position. This sort of job would help me use skills that I'm currently trying to improve. How useful will English be for your future? English will be very useful for my future. In the near future, it'll be important for my studies, and in the more distant future, I'll need it in my career path. How much traveling do you hope to do in the future? I'd really like to travel a lot in the future. I find it interesting to visit new places and try the food when I'm somewhere different. How do you think your life will change in the future? I think it'll be very different from the way my life is now. I'll probably have my own family and a lot more responsibilities than I have at the moment. So there we go. You can see 4 nice, simple answers there to simple questions. We don't really have to do any more than this in part 1 of the test. This isn't the part of the test where you're going to be achieving those really high band scores. These are the kind of answers, okay, a band 9 level student would give, but they're really going to show those kind of super high level skills in part 2 and part 3 of the test. This is to just show that we can communicate clearly and efficiently in English. So you can see that all of them were following this kind of 2-sentence structure where we're giving a nice direct answer in the first sentence and then we're kind of explaining a bit more in the second sentence. So it's a nice full answer. A 1-sentence answer maybe could be a bit short for these styles of question, but remember in part 1 it is sometimes okay to give a 1-sentence answer if it seems appropriate. But for these types of questions, I felt like, a second sentence was appropriate to use to explain our first sentence a bit. Now, that first answer that we gave to the what job would you like to have 10 years from now? It's nothing too complex there, but you can see in the first sentence, we've given a nice direct answer. We've started with the phrase in 10 years. Now, this is a bit challenging because we've kind of paraphrased from the question. 10 years from now. Well, instead of saying 10 years from now, we've said in 10 years. It's just a way of talking about the future. So we've shown a good understanding of how we use time expressions. Then we've said, I'd like to be. Now, really, we're just copying words from the question. You can see in the question we've got would like. Well, here we've got I'd. Again, it's showing some skill in English here. We're using a bit of a contraction where we're combining the words I and would. Shows a good level of pronunciation. And then, well, we've copied the word like, and that's fine to do, right? Brings focus to your answer. I'd like to be working in an international company. So we've given a job. Not entirely specific, but we've given the type of job that we would like to have. And in some kind of managerial position. So we haven't actually used the word job in that sentence, but we've used the word working, to be working, and we've used the word position or managerial position, which explains the type of job that we would like. Then in the second sentence, you can see how actually we've linked this second sentence with the first sentence because we've said this sort of job. Well, it's referring to the managerial position. Also, you can see in that first sentence we used kind of. Well, in this second sentence we've used sort of. So again, it's showing some kind of range of vocabulary here as well, but we're not having to focus on that, right? I just want to point out why this would be a high level answer, but you don't have to worry about this too much when you're giving your answers in the test. Best thing to do is give nice natural answers that follow these 2 steps. So this sort of job would help me use skills that I'm currently trying to improve. So again, we're talking about the future, but we're bringing in some of the present here that I'm currently trying to improve. So it's nice here, it shows a bit of variety in grammar, in the tense we're using, but it fits the topic of the question. So a nice clear answer there, nothing too complex. Then the second question, how useful will English be in your future? Well, we can see here in the first sentence, we've given a nice direct answer, copying words and grammar from the question. English will be very useful. So there we go. We've used the word English because that is the topic of the question. The tense will be. We're using the future simple. And then the word useful, because the question is asking how useful. Well, it's a good idea to copy the word useful there because we want to know how useful. And we've added the adverb very, very useful. So we've given a nice direct answer and then we've copied the phrase for your future. So you can see we're using that question in the answer there. Nice and direct, but that's not really enough. We need a second sentence here for sure, because that first sentence is very, very short. So we explain more in this second sentence. Now, you can see here we've kind of divided this second sentence into two parts. One about the near future and one about the distant future. Now, this shows a good level of vocabulary, that we know how to use the word future with some different adjectives. The near future, which means kind of soon, not far from now. And then the distant future, which means, well, a long time from now. So the whole sentence, in the near future, it'll be important for my studies. Notice here how we're linking with the first sentence with the word it. Well, it is referring to English, the word used in the first sentence. It'll be. Nice contraction there again. You can see we're always kind of trying to do that, showing off these pronunciation skills. It'll be important for my studies. So a nice kind of bit of paraphrasing there really, or using a different adjective, not repeating the word useful. We're using the word important. And then we've got the second part of the sentence, which is about the distant future. And in the more distant future, I'll need it in my career path. So there we go. Again, nothing too complex, nothing too difficult. We're just being nice and clear, nice and concise, and fully answering the question they're asking. If you look at the third question now, and the answer to that, the question was, how much traveling do you hope to do in the future? So we've got to answer that directly. Again, we're talking about the future. So I'd really like to travel. Okay, I and would together again, which shows that it's kind of about the future. And to travel a lot. Well, you can see we're using the word travel there, but we're changing the form of it. Okay, in the question, we've got the word traveling, but we're using travel in the answer. It's a good way of showing kind of a high level of skill with vocabulary and different forms of words. But again, we directly answered how much. Well, a lot. And then we've used that future expression, the same one again, in the future. Again, a short answer there that kind of directly answers the question, but we needed something extra afterwards. And we've got this second sentence. I find it interesting to visit new places and try the food when I'm somewhere different. Well, there we go. All we're doing there is giving a reason why we want to travel a lot in the future. We've got a nice contrast there when we're talking about the future, and then also kind of explaining why by giving reasons in the present simple tense as well. But it fits, right? It fits the context of the question. Now, if we move to the final question and look at the answer to that, the final one was, how do you think your life will change in the future? So again, about the future. Now, you can see here, nothing too much different, really. We start with the first sentence, which gives a direct answer. I think, well, the question asks, how do you think? So let's just copy it with, I think it'll be very different from the way my life is now. So again, you can see a bit of paraphrasing there, but we're directly answering the question. We're not using the word change, but we're saying, well, it'll be very different from the way my life is now. So this is nice because we're also comparing, well, what we think the future will be like with the present. So it shows some skill as well, grammatically. But then we explain a bit more in the second sentence. I'll probably have my own family. So again, I'll, right? It's showing we're talking about the future using a contraction where we brought the two words I and will together. You can see that throughout all of these answers. I'll probably have my own family. We show we're not sure, it's the future. We're using the word probably. And then we've got the second part of the sentence, and a lot more responsibilities than I have at the moment. So again, this nice way that we're kind of trying to compare the future or the expected future with the present as well. So there we go. You can see the answers here. They're not that long, right? They're keeping it quite simple. All of them are using nice, concise two-sentence answers, which is what you should be aiming for when you're in part one of the IELTS speaking test. It's later parts of the test where you can give really long answers. If you give really long answers in part one, then it's very likely the examiner is going to interrupt you because you'll be going off topic and they'll be trying to help you to stay on topic and just answer the question. But these are nice, clear answers. And they're the type of answers that a really high-level student would give in the IELTS speaking test. Now, I hope they've helped you to think about how you would answer these types of questions, and my advice would be to go away and practice answering these questions yourself as well. But I hope it was useful to have a look at these sample answers. And if you did enjoy the video, then remember to click the like button. And if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any similar videos in the future. So there we go. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you again in the next video.